Clemson football is in the college football playoff. They're going to travel to Texas, play the Longhorns in Austin. Dabo Swinney said, I'm going to get to meet Matthew McConaughey. This is great. To talk about Clemson and their chances against the Longhorns, you might be shocked at what he has to say. I'm going to bring on my buddy TJ from the College Football Addiction. TJ, thanks for joining me today. What's your thoughts on Clemson and Texas?
I think that Texas probably doesn't like the format of this playoff for several reasons. Number one, do we really think that Texas should be fifth behind Arizona State and Boise State? Probably not, right? Like, I think you should probably just see the teams 1 through 12. That might not be good news for Clemson as they are outside of that bubble. So Clemson probably loves this format, but even within that, do we really think that Boise State is a better team than Clemson right now? Now, they took care of business on the field, and I understand that. But I would think Texas would probably rather be playing, the blue-fielded Boise State team this first-round matchup than Clemson. I think this is a tricky spot for Texas, and I understand they're an 11-point favorite. If I was picking this game and it was happening tomorrow, I would take the Longhorns. There's no doubt about it. I think they've played better throughout the year. I think they're the more complete team. I think they provide some issues for Clemson, especially with that defensive front that Texas has, which is really good and did a good job of shutting Georgia down for a lot of that game, that kind of high-powered Georgia rushing attack that they've had at times. And so there are some definite concerns for Clemson with this game. However, I think all of the pressure is off of Clemson, and you've made the playoff now. You've won the ACC championship, though you really are a Fran Brown miracle away from not even qualifying, and your season feeling very, very different playing for maybe a Pop-Tart Bowl like Miami is. I do think you're in a situation, though, where all the pressure is off, and you recruit incredibly well, and you're playing a Texas team that, not being a hater at this moment, I'm not trying to be biased or anti-SEC. You're playing a Texas team that I believe played 5 of the bottom 7 SEC teams. They really had a very fortunate schedule. They caught A&M at the end of the year, which I think was good timing for them. And then they lost both times they played against Georgia, one of those times to Georgia's backup. I'm not overly impressed with Texas. I don't think Texas is the juggernaut that I think people maybe thought they were. I don't think they're as good as they were last year from top to bottom. And so having to play Clemson in the first round, we all kind of thought, oh, the 5 seed's where you want to be. The 5 seed, you're going to get to play the group of 5 champion. The 5 seed is going to be easy because you beat that group of 5 champion, and then you get to play an easy 4 seed too. I don't think Arizona State is an easy 4 seed for what it's worth. And so, yeah, Clemson to me is very tricky for Texas. They obviously recruit especially well. Clemson, you and I have talked about this, hasn't put together the full game just yet. But when they're good, they are really good. And they obviously had a 17-point lead early in the fourth quarter against SMU. I think that this is a tricky matchup for Texas, and I'm not calling on the upset just yet. But just like in basketball, when a 5-12 matchup happens in March, this is one that I think Texas has all alarm bells, all alerts ready for, and one that I think is going to be closer than a lot of people think.
In the SEC championship, Texas had some misses. In fact, there was a decent amount of misses, and there's a lot of people who are looking at the offense going, hey, if you would have done this, then this would have been the outcome. Georgia, of course, comes away victorious. We know the problems that's been going on at Clemson. Really, it's a lack of a complete game. Do you think that Clemson gets amped up? You're an outsider. You're outsider concerning Clemson. But you're in the ACC. Do you think that this is the moment that Swinney looks at his coaching staff and says, listen, guys, we have the opportunity of a lifetime? Do you think they can actually pull this together? Do you think that it's within their coaching culture that they could pull it together and upset Steve Sarkisian in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the Clemson DNA, and I absolutely think that they can pull this upset. And the one thing I will credit Clemson for, as bad as that fourth quarter was and as bad as they played down the stretch in that game, I do think that their culture is still pretty solid. And I think guys buy in. I think their fight and their determination and just kind of their mentality, the way they view games, the way they prep for games, is pretty spot on. And as much as people want to clown Dabo for funny things he says or silly things he says, or They want to talk about his portal strategy or this, that, and the other. Guys lock in and guys buy into what Dabo is selling. And have they had the coaching year that they deserve to have or that they should have had? Probably not, right? There's a lot of things we can nitpick and a lot of things that are deserving of criticism when it comes to the Clemson Tigers. Culture is not one of them. Guys buy in and guys believe. And Dabo says run through that wall and guys do it. And so I absolutely have no doubts that Dabo will have his guys ready from a mindset perspective. Now, are they the more talented team? Will they coach like the better team? Will Sarkisian be able to scheme things up to make things very difficult on Clemson? Yeah, all those are questions that need to get answered. But from a culture, from a buy-in, from a locking in for the game situation, I think that they'll be ready. I mean, we even saw that in the first half against Georgia, right? And I know the Georgia game didn't go down the way that Clemson fans wanted, and I know it got out of hand late. And could that same thing happen here in this 5-12 matchup? Absolutely. Could this game get away from Clemson and kind of turn into a laugher? Of course it could. College football is weird. Weird things happen. But you got to respect the buy-in that Dabo always has with his team, and I think they'll be ready. I think they're going to give Texas more of a game than people are guessing, more of a game than people are figuring at this point. And again, from a culture perspective, from a buy-in, I think the Tigers will be right there.
We know last year Texas was in the college football playoff. They're back. We all remember the Sam Ellinger moment. We're back, and they were not back. They are back for a second year in a row. You talked about the pressure on them. How does Steve Sarkisian get these guys amped up to play against Clemson? Because the common, like the current, that would be the word, current focus on Clemson or thought about Clemson, view on Clemson is that they were a good team. Now, they still have good players, and Dabo's still over there, and they wear the same jersey and stuff, but they're not elite. Maybe we can just squeak by on this one. How does he get into their head and say, yeah, you can look at the Georgia game, but guys, this is Sweeney in a playoff setting. I mean, the only other guy who's been to the playoffs more than him is retired now. I mean, do you think that there's going to be a battle there for some of these guys to go, it's Clemson, it's a bunch of has-beens? What do you think? How does he approach it? Do you even think maybe that's an issue?
I think it's less of an issue because of what just happened in Atlanta. And I thought that Georgia was the more physical team. I thought they coached more aggressively. I thought they were the team that went out and they didn't, when Georgia's quarterback goes down, when Carson Beck goes down, I thought it felt like Texas just played kind of not to lose. Like, hey, let's not blow this thing, right? Let's let Georgia make the mistakes and we'll sit back and we'll let them play into our hands. And because of that, it cost them a chance to win the SEC in their first year in the conference. And I don't think they'll do it again. I think they will come more focused. I think they will come with that mentality of it is win or go home. And I think playing in the SEC championship, they had very little to lose, right? They, instead of being the 2 seed now with a bye week, they're now the 5 seed with what many would consider a pretty easy road against a 12 seed that wouldn't even be in it if not for an auto bid, in a 4 seed in Arizona State. And so Texas's road to get to the semifinal, to get to the 4 teams that are remaining past January 1st, I think is there. And I think the focus will be back. I don't think they'll overlook Clemson. If this was a Boise State team they were playing, if it was an Arizona State team they were playing, maybe there's a little bit more concern about that. I think the brand that Clemson is, I think the talent that Clemson does have. I mean, Clemson played, and I know they lost, but Clemson played one of the hottest teams in college football to a very close game when they played South Carolina. And if not for a late interception, they probably win that game. And so, yeah, I think they'll have Texas's full attention. I don't think there'll be any kind of overlooking or thinking, oh, that's just Clemson, because of Clemson's recent history. Clemson has been a much better program than Texas over the last decade plus. And I think that because of all of those things, because of what just happened in Atlanta, Texas will be fully locked in. There will not be a, oh man, Clemson snuck up on us type of atmosphere or vibe in this one.
As we look at the college football playoff bracket, are there any teams that you feel like maybe they got the silver spoon? Maybe a little, I won't say home cooking, but a little favoritism. Is there anything you disagree with? Maybe you would like to see reshuffled, maybe a team that was left out that you would like to see included in the college football playoff?
Florida State thrown in this year to make up for what happened last year. Now, did they deserve it? Probably not. We could probably say that they had a few too many losses, few too many quality losses. They played a lot of bowl teams this year, but maybe just didn't do just enough to get in. In all seriousness, though, I think that Texas's lineup is pretty good, though. Get as much as I just bragged on Clemson, I do think getting to play a team that is only in because of an automatic qualifier, right? Like you're getting to play a 16 team. And then again, I really like Kenny Dillingham. I really like Arizona State and Cam Scatterbo, Sam Levitt. I think they've got some real talent there. I still think Texas is got a really, really good matchup there. And so I like Texas's path to get to the semifinal. Now, could they lose either one of those games? Absolutely. I don't think there's a dominant team. I think that Oregon kind of got the raw, you asked about who got the silver spoon. I think Oregon got kind of the raw end of the deal. Having to play either Ohio State or Tennessee in round 2 at a neutral site is pretty tough. I think that that's kind of a, they could have back-to-back Ohio State and then Texas in consecutive games. Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got a Notre Dame team that's playing some of the best football in college football right now. They get a home game, and then they might be playing Georgia without Carson Beck. That's pretty favorable. I'm not writing off SMU just yet, but I think Penn State getting to play SMU and then Boise State back-to-back, and then maybe they're playing a Georgia team without Carson Beck for a chance to go to the national championship. And so, yeah, I think that things worked out pretty well for Penn State. I think they worked out pretty well for Texas. I think Oregon kind of got a pretty tough draw with the way that the seedings went down. And all of that said, I think that there's still not a dominant team in this, and there legitimately are 6 or 7 teams plus in this 12-team playoff that could win this whole thing. I think the real issue is not with any of I think the committee basically did what they needed to do and did follow the protocols. I think the setup is bad, where you've got a Boise State at 3, where you have an Ohio State, Tennessee at 8, 9. Tennessee was host to or a lock to host, and then because certain losses went the way they did, they got bumped down into having to travel up north. And so the format to me is bad. And so the committee, they can only follow the rules. They can only do what's supposed to happen. But yeah, I think that there are some advantageous places. I think that Notre Dame's got one, SMU's got one, Texas has one, and then, some hard ones. I think that, it's set up pretty difficult for a Tennessee, pretty difficult for an Oregon, pretty difficult for some of these other teams that are in it. But overall, I still think that it's wide open and going to be a really, really fun playoff.
Yeah, as a Florida State fan, are you still in mourning over the landing spot of Miami?
Yeah, it's pretty sad to see them in the Pop-Tart Bowl, about an hour and a half from me here in just north of Tampa, and they're in Orlando. I actually do like Pop-Tarts, and that trophy is actually pretty cool looking. So I have no thoughts that they're going to win that game. I think the Cyclones will beat them, but yeah, not upset at all that Miami is the second team. At least Florida State was the first team out of the playoff last year. Miami, kind of embarrassing that they were the second team left out of a 12-team playoff. At least Florida State was 5 out of 4, and Miami 14 out of 12.
And how many players sit out of that game for the University of Miami?
Well, hopefully none. If their culture, all we heard last year was that Florida State was, could have gone out and proven their worth and proven it to the committee. And same thing for Alabama. They better not have anybody sitting out of this bowl game. This is their opportunity to prove to the committee that they belonged. So I don't know. I would expect that quite a few of the Miami kids sit out. Alabama, I don't know how many upperclassmen they have, right? You've got a 17-year-old out there playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl that everybody wanted to flip out over. So yeah, I would hope not too many, but I would expect that quite a few of the Miami guys don't play in that Pop-Tart Bowl.
I can tell it's definitely affecting you in a way. TJ, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, go check out College Football Addiction. We also do Double Fries, No Slaw for FSU only content, but College Football Addiction is a fun place to go check out national college football coverage that we do.
TJ, it's always fun to have you on. Everybody, go check out his channel. I hope you'll subscribe to his channel. If you haven't subscribed here, I hope you will. Remember, it's free for both channels. I know, free. Sweetest words in the English language. TJ, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, buddy.